Good morning. Okay, so this video is going to be kind of quick. I'm going to make a more extensive video later with some more concrete illustrations of how this all shakes out. But what I'm going to do, because it's finally become clear enough to me in my mind and enough has been revealed in the field to me to be able to finally kind of bring it forward. It's been really a really complex thing to wade through. But what I'm talking about is how reincarnation actually works, right? So this idea that we come back, that whatever soul we were, we come back as that only one soul. So let's say like one of my templates is Joan of Arc. That's just one of them, right? And that's a way later template from like the original archetypal templates that all of these are fractals of, okay? And for months I've been hearing this, like the original seven, the original seven, the original seven, in reference to my templating, or this unique combination of my templating or its ultimate origins, of its consciousness origins, okay? And it gets pretty high level if you have the ability to kind of perceive of it. And really, y'all, the only reason I can perceive and connect a lot of these dots is because of my education. That's it. And I'm not saying that everybody has to have institutional education. I'm not one of those academics, actually. In fact, if you don't want to go to college, you shouldn't, because you're going to hate it the whole time. And, trade schools, vocational training, whatever. Follow your bliss, okay? Within, the binds of, being a decent person. Right? That's how we don't cause harm. So anyway, okay. So let's say you were Joan of Arc in a past life, or even Mary Magdalene, right? Each go-round, how reincarnation actually works is, and we'll start out with like Joan of Arc, which is the more recent one, right? What if we go all the way back? Okay, so I was Joan of Arc. When I died in that life, my soul got split into other bodies. And this is how, when I talk about like a remix, recollaboration of parts from like one larger body of like templates that you are more suited for, that's what I'm talking about. So it comes from that oversoul, maybe like what we call like the monad, right? And that's why those within your monad share a lot of the same templates. It's just they also have like aspects of other little templates that you don't have, and that's why their blueprint is different than yours. Okay, so that's how this all shakes out. So I kept hearing this, the original seven, and I started trying to corroborate this information, right? And this was around the Pleiades portal, and there are 7 Pleiades stars. There are 7 Pleiades sisters, okay, from myth. And that's where I started cracking into it from that angle. And then I found other instances of 7, right? But when I started talking to my friends that have knowledge of the secret space program, or they were part of those operations at some point during their military career, they tell me that yes, it generally happens that it's a minimum of 7, and in my sense it can go up to 12. So sometimes our consciousness gets split, and it's not a degrading of our consciousness. It is like a downstep, the fall, right? It is a downstep from those original archetypes of the templates. Like if we think of like these classic bodies of gods and goddesses as the original templates, right? And even they are fallen versions of these templates because they're in this realm. Imagine how much, like if you were up in like even just 18D, right? And you needed to come down to 3D. You had to step your consciousness down to do that. How would you do that? You couldn't just go straight from there to here. Like once again, with the scuba diving reference, right? You can't go down too fast. You can't go up too fast, or you get the bends and your head explodes, right? Like in a manner of speaking. So what happens is it's a process, right? And that's what we've been seeing playing out on Earth for a long time is, at first what it was is they did kind of get reincarnated into this grouping of souls. So when people talk about the Christos missions, that's why there's so many different versions of this mission. Like Akhenaten was a Christos figure. Obviously Yeshua was, like King Arthur was. There's a lot of them. And by sticking in one storyline, you are actively choosing to disregard all of those other connections. And you're actively choosing to stay within the confines of that one timeline. And ultimately what ends up happening there is you end up stuck in that initiation that you were just supposed to remember briefly to retrieve some sort of lesson or piece of yourself, a soul piece, a soul fragment, and then reintegrate that with your part and move on. Like, you don't get stuck there. You don't go out on a ritual initiation, on a rite of passage out to the desert to do it and then stay there. You come the fuck back. Okay? So let me draw this out, and maybe this will clarify it a little bit. And I'll expand on this. And I'm interested to know what you guys want to know about this, because it's all pretty clear to me at this point. But trying to verbalize it and do it in such a way that was comprehensible has been very difficult. And once again, I'm no different than you all. I am no different, okay? I've been prepared and seasoned in a little bit different way just because of my own fucking neurotic shit and being a perfectionist and getting my education and, you know, being able to dissociate from my life bullshit to be able to do that. Honestly, guys, that's the only thing that kept me alive was my schooling. Because it was the only sense of structure that I had. So yeah, I leaned in and I was good at it. And it's okay to be proud of what you're good at, okay? And there is a way to serve the divine purpose with what you are naturally good at. You don't have to pretend to be anybody else. And that brings me to my next point, okay? So if I was Joan of Arc, let me find a good marker here. If I was Joan of Arc, and that's just one of the many people I've been, right? It's that same kind of theme as Jophael templating, right? Jophael being the angel that kicked Adam and Eve out of the garden, which that's not really how it happened, okay? And I'm happy to go and over the memories I have of that with y'all if you want. But yeah, it's that same kind of theme as the Titan, you know, this arbitrator of divine justice. I'm Libra Stellium, by the way. So whatever, you know, all of these things, all of these spiritual tools are just tools to help you find your way back to you. Not to help you get inundated into some sort of cult that's ruled by that, right? So learn to see when it's turning into that, okay? So let me get my notebook here. So let's say this is life 1, right? I'm just gonna write her name, Joan. Okay? And right, this isn't actually life 1 on this planet for most people with this templating, right? This is just one of them, but this is where I'm gonna start because it's easier, right? So once Joan of Arc gets burned at the stake, right? And let's be real, okay? I'm saying this as her, as having learned my fucking lessons. I was an agent of the fucking state, of another aspect of the tyrannical God programming in fighting with another version of the tyrannical God programming, okay? I'm here to say that. And those that claim to be or have Joan of Arc template that don't acknowledge this are doing you a disservice. Okay, so let's say I was Joan, right? And I haven't traced who all I actually got filtered out to in that life. I really haven't messed with it much, okay? Because I started having visions of Saint Teresa around this time too, so and that templating very much lines up with my templating too. Saint Teresa of in ecstasy. Okay, so let's say Joan gets reincarnated into 7 new avatars, right? That all have this Joan, but they also are mixed with other pieces of other templating that is from Joan's oversoul or monad, right? Hold on. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that in and of itself complicates this thing quite a bit, right? Much less when these versions of who was Joan before split out, right, into another 7 or maximum 12, like I think. And this is subject to change, right? This is just my sense of how it's been operating on this planet. And the 12, I think, is going to become more typical as people activate past the 10-strand DNA stuff. So not all of, you know, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater of any of this stuff. Just don't become indoctrinated into a cult with it, okay? So as we can see, none of these templates are really only ours, because the next time around, there's gonna be more of you, right? And it's easy to think of this as your clones. That's not really what it is. And you probably do have quote unquote clones out there, because if you're a highly coded being, those are the desirable characteristics, right? But there are actually techniques you can use to go in and kind of self-destruct your non-organic clones. And that doesn't mean you're self-destructing the people that share the same templating as you. That doesn't mean that. Because those other people that also remember being Joan probably remember being other people too. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, once you start remembering, I started having memories of being in 2 places at once during the same time period. Okay? And the only reason I really had a frame of reference for this was because I teach art history. Okay? So I know, you know, roughly, right? And then I can go in and check. And I'm just like, how could I, as one person, have been, you know, and granted, even with my abilities, right? So it took me a while to like suss out what was happening. And this was, you know, this has been a long, like 7-8 months of this like specific kind of endeavor. Like, obviously this shit's been happening my whole life and it's been all connected, right? So when you claim a template as your own, as if it's only yours, and anybody else claiming that template is a fraud or an imposter, you're playing in to the imposter god bullshit programming, okay? Because there's not just one of you. And you're still motherfucking special. And let me tell you why. Because out of that oversoul, you're going to have a bunch of templates within your blueprint that you can either choose to embody or not. That doesn't mean you have to discard those aspects of yourself, right? You integrate those. Maybe that life wasn't one of your best lives, and there's a big soul piece you need there to really get this shit going properly, and in a healthy way that's not, once again, just further distortion. And this, a really good example of seeing this play out within history, within the art historical record, is this shift originally in Egypt from Seshat or Sopdet to the splitting of her consciousness into Anubis and Isis, or who we call Anubis and Isis, right? Because if we think about those names, those aren't even Egyptian names. Those names got placed on those gods, which inadvertently in the quantum creates an overlay, right? Anytime we tell someone else's story for them and don't get it from the horse's mouth, it creates an overlay. And this is why psychic attack and black magic is so subtle. Like literally, you can be talking shit about a person and you are actively causing harm in the quantum, because you are weaving webs of storylines and narratives that aren't accurate and are distorting the truth, or that person's truth, right? History should be written from all of our histories, not one group that decides which ones are worthy. They are all worthy because they all tell different versions of the story.